The rain came down so hard it felt like the sky itself was breaking apart. 9 months pregnant and barely able to stand, Naomi Carter clutched her swollen belly as she stared at the front door that had just been slammed in her face. "Don't come back until you figure out your own problems," her husband Marcus shouted from inside. Naomi's heart shattered. For 10 years, she had loved him. For 10 years, she had stood beside him through debt, unemployment, and countless struggles. She worked double shifts when he lost his job. She skipped meals so their bills could be paid. She believed marriage meant staying together when life became difficult. But now, when she was carrying their first child, Marcus had decided she was nothing more than a burden. The door remained closed. Her phone battery sat at 8%. Her bank account contained less than $20. And labor pains had already begun. Tears mixed with rain as she slowly walked down the street. Cars passed by without stopping. People glanced at her and looked away. Nobody noticed the terrified pregnant woman struggling to breathe beneath the storm. After nearly an hour, Naomi collapsed onto a bus stop bench. A sharp pain shot through her stomach. She knew she needed help. Desperately, she opened her contacts and searched for the number of her former landlord. Mr. Kim, a kind Korean man who had once helped her during difficult times. Her vision blurred from exhaustion. She typed a message. "Please help me. I have nowhere to go. I'm pregnant and alone." Without checking the number carefully, she pressed send. Then everything went black. 3,000 miles away, in Seoul, South Korea, a private meeting was interrupted by a vibrating phone. Everyone in the room fell silent. The phone belonged to Kang Min-jae. His name inspired fear across Asia. Newspapers called him a businessman. Politicians called him influential. His enemies called him dangerous. Many simply referred to him as the Korean mafia boss. Min-jae rarely received personal messages. Even fewer people had his private number. He glanced at the text. "Please help me. I have nowhere to go. I'm pregnant and alone." The room became quiet. His men waited for instructions. Instead, Min-jae stared at the message for several seconds. Something about it felt genuine. No demand for money, no threats. No manipulation, just fear. "Real fear," he replied. "Who is this?" Several minutes passed. No answer. Then another message appeared. It wasn't a text. It was an accidental voice recording. A weak voice cried through the speaker. "Please, somebody help my baby." Then silence. Min-jae stood up immediately. "Find her." The room froze. One of his advisors blinked. "Sir, we don't even know who she is." Min-jae looked at the phone. "Find her anyway." What nobody in the room knew was that 28 years earlier, Min-jae's own mother had died after being abandoned while pregnant. No one had stopped to help her. No one had answered her cries. That memory had followed him his entire life. And now another frightened pregnant woman was asking for help. He refused to ignore it. Using resources most governments would envy, his team traced the number within hours. The location shocked them. United States, Chicago. An abandoned bus stop near the south side. Min-jae arranged a private medical response through international contacts. When Naomi opened her eyes, she found herself inside a hospital room. Doctors surrounded her. Nurses monitored her condition. For a moment she thought she was dreaming. A nurse smiled gently. "You're safe." Naomi burst into tears. "Who brought me here?" The nurse hesitated. "Someone who received your message." Naomi frowned. What message? Then she remembered. The text. The wrong number. The mistake. Hours later she learned the truth. A complete stranger from South Korea had paid for everything. The ambulance. The hospital. The treatment. Everything. She couldn't understand why. Neither could the doctors. 2 days later, Naomi gave birth to a healthy baby girl. The moment she held her daughter, every hardship suddenly felt worth surviving. She named her Hope, because that's exactly what she had found when she needed it most. Weeks passed. Naomi slowly recovered. She expected never to hear from the mysterious stranger again. Then one evening her phone rang. A Korean number appeared. Curious, she answered. A calm male voice spoke. How is your daughter? Naomi immediately recognized him. The man who helped me. Yes. She swallowed hard. Why? Several seconds passed. Then Min-jae answered quietly. Because someone should have helped my mother. For the first time, Naomi heard sadness behind the powerful voice. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. They spoke about family, lost dreams, regret, and hope. As weeks became months, their unlikely friendship grew, not because of money, not because of power, but because both understood pain. One had been abandoned. The other had spent years carrying wounds nobody could see. Meanwhile, Marcus returned. His friends had discovered the story online after hospital staff shared the incredible rescue. The public praised Naomi's strength. People donated, community groups supported her. News stations wanted interviews. Suddenly, Marcus realized what he had lost. He arrived carrying flowers and apologies, but Naomi saw something she had never noticed before. He wasn't sorry because he loved her. He was sorry because she no longer needed him. For the first time in her life, Naomi chose herself. She closed the door and walked away. Months later, Naomi launched a nonprofit organization helping homeless pregnant women find shelter and medical support. The project started small: one apartment, 3 mothers, a handful of volunteers. But kindness spreads. The women she helped later helped others. The circle continued growing. Soon hundreds of families received support. When reporters asked how everything began, Naomi always smiled. A wrong text message. Nobody believed her at first, yet it was true. One accidental message had changed countless lives. Not because of power, not because of wealth, but because a stranger chose compassion over indifference. And somewhere across the ocean, Kang Min-jae watched the organization grow. Every year, anonymous donations appeared. Every year, more mothers found safety. Neither Naomi nor the women she helped ever forgot the lesson hidden inside that stormy night. Sometimes the people who save us are complete strangers. Sometimes a mistake becomes a miracle. And sometimes a single act of kindness travels farther than anyone could ever imagine. The nonprofit grew faster than Naomi ever imagined. Within 2 years, Hope Haven had become one of Chicago's most respected shelters for homeless mothers. Women arrived with nowhere to go and left with apartments, jobs, childcare support, and renewed confidence. Naomi worked tirelessly. Every mother who walked through the doors reminded her of the night she had sat alone in the rain. She never wanted another woman to experience that fear. One afternoon, while reviewing paperwork in her office, her assistant rushed inside. "Naomi, you need to see this." "What happened?" "A donor just pledged $5 million. Naomi nearly dropped her coffee. $5 million? The assistant nodded. "The donor wants to remain anonymous." Naomi smiled. She already knew who it was. Across the world, Kang Min-jae was still quietly supporting the mission. For nearly 2 years, they had remained close friends. Video calls became weekly, then daily. Sometimes they discussed business, sometimes parenting. Sometimes they simply sat together in silence after exhausting days. Despite the distance, Min-jae had become one of the most important people in Naomi's life, and little Hope adored him. Whenever his face appeared on a screen, the toddler would scream excitedly. "Uncle Min." Min-jae always laughed. Nobody else in the world dared call him that. One evening, Naomi noticed something unusual during their video call. Min-jae looked exhausted. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. His normally calm expression seemed tense. "You okay?" she asked. He hesitated. "Just business." She wasn't convinced. Over the past 2 years, she had learned when he was hiding something. What kind of business? Min-jae glanced away. "Nothing you need to worry about." That answer worried her even more, because powerful men only said that when something serious was happening. 3 days later, Naomi received a phone call from an unfamiliar Korean number. A nervous man introduced himself as Mr. Park, one of Min-jae's senior advisors. His voice shook. "Miss Carter, I apologize for contacting you directly. What happened? Mr. Kang has been injured. Naomi's stomach dropped. What? There was an attack. The room spun around her. For several seconds, she couldn't breathe. Is he alive? Yes, the advisor answered quickly. But he is refusing treatment. What? He keeps asking for updates about your shelter instead. Naomi stared in disbelief. Even after being attacked, Min-jae was worried about other people. The same man who had saved her life was now lying in a hospital bed, refusing to focus on himself. Without thinking, Naomi booked the first flight to Seoul. 20 hours later, she stepped into a private hospital overlooking the city. Security guards stood everywhere. Doctors rushed through hallways. The atmosphere felt tense. Mr. Park greeted her. When he opened the hospital room door, Naomi finally saw Min-jae in person for the first time. The sight broke her heart. His arm was bandaged. Bruises covered his face. Several cuts lined his forehead. Yet when he saw Naomi, he smiled. You flew all the way here? Naomi folded her arms. You're impossible. His smile widened. Good to see you too. Then she surprised everyone. She walked directly to his bedside and hugged him. The room became silent. Every bodyguard stared in shock. Nobody touched Kang Min-jae. Nobody, yet he simply closed his eyes and returned the hug. For the first time in years, the feared mafia boss looked completely at peace. Over the next several weeks, Naomi remained in Seoul. She helped coordinate shelter operations remotely while caring for Min-jae during recovery. The arrangement confused everyone around them. Business executives couldn't understand why their intimidating boss listened to a former homeless woman. Bodyguards couldn't understand why he smiled whenever she entered a room. Even Min-jae struggled to explain it. One evening, they sat together on a rooftop overlooking Seoul's lights. The city sparkled beneath them. Hope slept peacefully inside. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Min-jae broke the silence. Do you ever think about that text message? Naomi laughed softly. Every day. If you had typed the correct number, we never would have met. That's true. He looked toward the skyline. Funny how life works. Naomi studied him carefully. The powerful businessman, the feared underworld figure, the lonely man hiding beneath both identities. Then she asked the question nobody else dared ask. Are you happy? Min-jae froze. Nobody had ever asked him that. People asked about money, power, success, influence, but not happiness, not once. For several moments, he remained silent. Then he gave an honest answer. No. Naomi wasn't surprised, because she had already seen it. A man surrounded by people, yet completely alone. A man respected by millions, yet truly known by almost nobody. A man who spent his life protecting others while carrying wounds nobody healed. For the first time, Min-jae admitted the truth. And for the first time, Naomi understood that saving her had only been the beginning. Neither realized it yet. But the biggest challenge of their lives was about to begin, because someone from Min-jae's past had discovered Naomi's existence, and they were already planning to use her against him. The threat arrived 3 days later. At first, it seemed harmless. A bouquet of white roses appeared outside Naomi's hotel suite. No note, no sender, just flowers. But the moment Min-jae saw them, his expression darkened. Naomi noticed immediately. What is it? He stared at the roses. Nobody touched them. The bodyguards moved instantly. Within minutes, security experts examined every flower. Hidden beneath the bouquet was a tiny tracking device. Naomi felt a chill run through her body. Someone had been watching her. Someone knew exactly where she was. And to that someone wanted Min-jae to know it. That night, an emergency meeting was held inside one of Min-jae's private offices. His most trusted advisors filled the room. The atmosphere was tense. A photograph appeared on a screen. Naomi recognized the man immediately. Cold eyes, expensive suit, cruel smile. Who is he? She asked. Min-jae's jaw tightened. Han Woo-sung. The room fell silent. Even the bodyguards looked uncomfortable. Years ago, Min-jae continued, he was my closest friend. Naomi listened carefully. He helped build everything I have today. What happened? Betrayal. The single word carried years of pain. According to Min Jae, Woo Sung had once been like a brother. Together they had risen from poverty. Together they had built businesses. Together they had survived dangers most people couldn't imagine. Then greed changed everything. Woo Sung secretly stole millions of dollars and arranged attacks against innocent people to increase profits. When Min Jae discovered the truth, he ended their partnership immediately. Since then, Woo Sung had blamed him for everything. For years, he had tried to destroy Min Jae's reputation. Now he had found a new target, Naomi. Across Seoul, inside a luxury penthouse, Han Woo Sung smiled while examining photographs. One showed Naomi holding Hope. Another showed Naomi entering Min Jae's hospital. Another showed the rooftop conversation. His assistant stood nearby. Should we proceed? Woo Sung laughed. The mighty Kang Min Jae finally has something he cares about. He placed Naomi's photograph on the table, which means he finally has a weakness. The following week, security around Naomi increased dramatically. B-guards accompanied her everywhere. At first, she hated it. She felt trapped, watched, restricted. But she understood the danger. One afternoon, she took Hope to a children's park near the Han River. Several guards stood nearby. Families laughed. Children played. For a brief moment, everything felt normal. Then Hope disappeared. Naomi looked away for only seconds. 1 second, her daughter was beside the slide. The next, she was gone. Pure terror exploded through her chest. Hope! Her scream echoed across the playground. Dakrents turned. Children stopped playing. Bodyguards immediately sprang into action. Naomi ran through the park in panic. Every horrible possibility flashed through her mind. Then she spotted a small crowd. She pushed through people and froze. Hope sat on a bench eating ice cream. Beside her sat an elderly homeless woman. The old woman smiled warmly. Your daughter was lost. Naomi's knees nearly gave out from relief. She hugged Hope tightly. Tears streamed down her face. Don't ever do that again. Hope nodded. I'm sorry, Mommy. The homeless woman watched quietly. Naomi thanked her repeatedly. Then she noticed something strange. The woman looked hungry, very hungry. Without hesitation, Naomi invited her to lunch. 2 hours later, they sat together in a small restaurant. The elderly woman introduced herself as Mrs. Lee. She had been homeless for nearly 8 years. Her children no longer spoke to her. Her health was failing. Most people ignored her. But Naomi treated her with kindness, the same kindness she gave everyone, the same kindness that had changed her own life. When lunch ended, Naomi secretly arranged temporary housing through local charities. Mrs. Lee cried openly, "No one has helped me in years." Naomi squeezed her hand. Everyone deserves another chance. Neither woman realized someone had photographed the entire encounter. The next morning, those photos appeared online. Millions saw them. The founder of a major nonprofit helping a homeless stranger. The story spread rapidly. People praised Naomi's compassion. Donations flooded Hope Haven. News stations covered the story internationally. Even in South Korea, people couldn't stop talking about her. For the first time, Naomi became famous, not because she was connected to Min Jae, but because she genuinely cared about others. Min Jae watched the news coverage with pride. Yet someone else was watching too. Han Woo Sung. And unlike everyone else, he wasn't smiling. He was furious. Every attack against Naomi seemed to make her stronger. Every attempt to frighten her increased public support. Every plan was failing. Then he made a dangerous decision, a decision that would change everything. If she is his weakness, Woo Sung said coldly, then remove her completely. Even his own men looked shocked, because this was no longer business, this was war. That same evening, Naomi received a message from an unknown number. At first, she thought it was spam. Then she opened the attachment. A video began playing. The footage showed her shelter in Chicago. Women entering the building, children playing outside, volunteers working. Then the camera zoomed closer, much closer. A single sentence appeared on screen. Nice charity. It would be a shame if something happened to it. Naomi's blood ran cold. For the first time since that rainy night years ago, she felt genuine fear, not for herself, but for the women and children depending on her. And when Min Jae saw the message, something changed inside him. The calm businessman disappeared. The patient leader vanished. The old warrior returned. Because Woo Sung had made one critical mistake. He hadn't threatened Min Jae. He had threatened innocent mothers and children. And that was something Kang Min Jae would never forgive. The moment Min Jae finished watching the video, the room fell silent. Every advisor knew what was coming. Every bodyguard recognized the look in his eyes. For years, Kang Min Jae had tried to build a different life, a cleaner life, a quieter life. But Han Woo Sung had just threatened innocent women and children. That crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "Find him," Min Jae said calmly. The calmness frightened everyone more than anger ever could. Within minutes, dozens of investigators began searching. Phones were traced, accounts were monitored. Safe houses were identified. The hunt had begun. Meanwhile, Naomi couldn't stop thinking about the video. Back in Chicago, hundreds of mothers depended on Hope Haven. Some had escaped abusive relationships. Others had nowhere else to go. Many had children who finally felt safe. The thought of anyone hurting them made her sick. That night she barely slept. When dawn arrived, she quietly entered Hope's room. Her daughter was sleeping peacefully, curled beneath a blanket, completely unaware of the danger surrounding them. Naomi brushed a hand through her hair. "I'll protect you," she whispered. "No matter what." 3 days later, Woo Sung made his next move. A black SUV pulled beside Mrs. Lee, the homeless woman Naomi had helped. 2 men stepped out. They offered money, a lot of money. All she had to do was help them get close to Naomi. Mrs. Lee listened carefully. Then she surprised them. She stood up and threw the envelope back into the vehicle. "I may be poor," she said, "but I'm not for sale." The men left furious. What they didn't know was that Mrs. Lee immediately contacted Naomi. Within hours, Min Jae's team learned about the attempted approach. Another plan had failed. Another person had chosen loyalty over greed. And Woo Sung was running out of options. Days later, Naomi attended a charity fundraiser in Seoul. The event attracted business leaders, celebrities, and donors from around the world. For the first time, she felt nervous. She wasn't used to attention. She preferred helping people quietly. But the event would raise millions for mothers in need, so she agreed. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers. Elegant dresses filled the room. Reporters crowded every corner. When Naomi entered, cameras immediately turned toward her. She felt overwhelmed. Then she noticed Min Jae standing nearby. His reassuring smile instantly calmed her. As the evening continued, donors shared stories about how Hope Haven had changed lives. Women spoke about escaping homelessness. Children talked about finally having bedrooms of their own. Many guests wiped away tears. The fundraiser was a huge success until the lights suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the ballroom. People screamed. Glass shattered somewhere across the room. Security teams moved instantly. Min Jae grabbed Naomi's hand. "Stay behind me." Emergency lights flickered on, and chaos erupted. Several masked men had entered the building. Guests rushed toward exits. Bodyguards intercepted the attackers. The ballroom transformed into a battlefield. Naomi clutched Hope tightly. Her heart pounded. One attacker broke through security and sprinted toward them. Everything happened in seconds. A bodyguard tackled the man. Another disarmed him. But before being restrained, the attacker shouted something. A message from Woo Sung. "Tell Kang Min Jae, this is only the beginning." The words echoed through the ballroom. Then silence returned. The attackers were arrested. Nobody was seriously hurt. But the message was clear. Woo Sung was becoming desperate. And desperate people were dangerous. Later that night, After Hope had fallen asleep, Naomi found Min-jae standing alone on a balcony overlooking Seoul. The city lights stretched endlessly below. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Naomi stepped beside him. "You blame yourself." Min-jae looked away. "If I had ended this years ago, none of this would be happening." Naomi shook her head. "No, what do you mean?" "You didn't create his choices." Min-jae remained silent. "You gave people jobs, homes, opportunities. You helped me when nobody else would." She looked directly at him. His actions belonged to him. For several seconds, he simply stared at her. Then something unexpected happened. Something neither had planned. Something both had been avoiding. Min-jae reached for her hand. Naomi didn't pull away. Their eyes met. Years of friendship, trust, pain, healing. Everything seemed to collide at once. Slowly, carefully, he leaned closer. And Naomi did the same. Their first kiss lasted only a moment. But it changed everything. When they finally stepped apart, neither spoke. Neither needed to. Because both understood the truth now. Somewhere between the rainy night in Chicago and the countless conversations afterward, friendship had become something more. Something much deeper. Something worth fighting for. Unfortunately, they weren't the only ones who discovered it. Hundreds of miles away, Han Woo-sung watched photographs taken outside the fundraiser. His expression darkened. For the first time, he realized Naomi wasn't simply important to Min-jae. She was the person Min-jae loved, and that revelation gave him a new idea, a terrifying one. Because if he couldn't destroy Min-jae's empire, he would try to destroy his heart. And this time, he was preparing a plan far more dangerous than anything before. For the first time in years, Han Woo-sung stopped thinking like a businessman. He started thinking like a man with nothing left to lose. And that made him more dangerous than ever. Standing inside his penthouse overlooking Seoul, he studied a wall covered with photographs. Min-jae, Naomi, Hope, Hope Haven, every person and place connected to them. His obsession had grown beyond revenge. He didn't simply want to defeat Min-jae anymore. He wanted him to suffer, the way he believed he had suffered, the way he believed the world had treated him. And in his mind, Naomi had become the perfect target. Meanwhile, Naomi and Hope remained under heavy security. The fundraiser attack had changed everything. Even simple trips required planning. Bodyguards checked routes. Vehicles changed daily. Schedules remained confidential. Naomi hated it. She missed normal life. She missed walking freely. She missed taking Hope to the park without armed guards nearby. One afternoon, while helping at a shelter in Seoul, she sat beside a young pregnant woman named Hana. The girl was only 19, terrified, alone. Her family had abandoned her after learning she was expecting a baby. The story felt painfully familiar. As Hana cried, Naomi held her hand. "You are stronger than you think." The young woman wiped away tears. "What if nobody wants me?" Naomi smiled gently. "I asked myself that same question once." Then she looked toward Hope, who was coloring at a nearby table. "And life surprised me." The conversation reminded Naomi how far she had come. Not long ago, she had been the frightened woman begging for help. Now she was helping others survive their darkest moments. That evening, Min-jae arrived unexpectedly at the shelter. The mothers immediately recognized him. Many had heard stories. Some feared him. Others admired him. But all were surprised when they saw him carrying boxes of toys. The children rushed toward him. Within minutes, the feared mafia boss was sitting on the floor, helping toddlers build toy castles. Naomi laughed. If your enemies could see this, they'd never believe it. One little boy climbed into Min-jae's lap. Another handed him a stuffed bear. Soon half the room surrounded him. The sight warmed Naomi's heart. Because beneath the reputation, beneath the power, beneath the fear others associated with his name, he was simply a man who cared deeply about people, especially children, especially families. The kind of family he had never truly had. Later that night, everything changed. Naomi received a phone call from Chicago. One of Hope Haven's managers sounded terrified. Naomi, what happened? There was a fire. Her heart nearly stopped. What? The West Wing. Naomi jumped to her feet. Are the mothers okay? Everyone got out. Relief flooded through her, but only briefly. The manager continued. The fire department says it wasn't an accident. The room became silent. Arson. Someone had intentionally started it. Naomi slowly looked toward Min Jae. Both already knew who was responsible. Woo Sung. He had finally acted on his threat, and innocent women could have died. The next morning, shocking news arrived. Security cameras had captured a suspect leaving the building before the fire. Authorities released an image. Within hours, Min Jae's investigators identified him, one of Woo Sung's men. The evidence was undeniable. For the first time, law enforcement agencies from multiple countries became involved. Woo Sung wasn't just threatening people anymore. He was committing serious crimes, and the walls around him were beginning to close. But a cornered predator is often the most dangerous. That same week, Woo Sung disappeared. His businesses were abandoned, his known properties emptied, his closest associates vanished. Nobody knew where he had gone. And that uncertainty frightened everyone, because a visible enemy can be watched, a hidden one cannot. 3 nights later, Naomi woke suddenly. Something felt wrong. The room was quiet, too quiet. She checked the clock, 2:17 a.m. Then she noticed it. Hope's bedroom door was slightly open. Naomi frowned. She distinctly remembered closing it. Slowly she walked toward the room. Every step felt heavier. Her pulse raced. When she pushed the door open, her blood froze. The bed was empty. Hope was gone. For a moment, Naomi couldn't breathe. Her mind refused to process what she was seeing. Then panic exploded inside her. Hope! Her scream echoed through the house. Security teams rushed inside. Lights turned on everywhere. Guards searched every room, every hallway, every entrance. But Hope was nowhere. Naomi collapsed to her knees. Terror consumed her. The worst nightmare of any parent had become reality. Minutes later, Min Jae arrived. The moment he saw Naomi's face, he knew. Something terrible had happened. What is it? Naomi could barely speak. They took her. The words shattered the silence. For the first time in many years, witnesses would later say they saw genuine fear on Kang Min Jae's face. Not anger, not rage, fear. Because Hope wasn't just Naomi's daughter anymore. She had become family, and someone had taken her. Then a phone rang. Everyone turned. Min Jae answered. A familiar voice laughed through the speaker. Han Woo Sung. Now, he said calmly, you finally understand what loss feels like. The call disconnected, and in that moment, the war became personal. Because finding Hope was no longer about winning. It was about bringing a little girl home before it was too late. The silence after the phone call was unbearable. Naomi sat frozen on the floor. Her hands trembled. Her heart felt like it had stopped beating. Hope was gone. Her little girl, her entire world, gone. And Jay knelt beside her. For a moment, the powerful businessman, feared by thousands, looked completely helpless. Then he took Naomi's hands. Listen to me. Tears streamed down her face. We will find her. What if we're too late? We won't be. His voice was firm, certain. The kind of certainty Naomi desperately needed. Because if Min Jae believed Hope could be found, then she had to believe it too. Within an hour, one of the largest manhunts in recent memory was underway. Security teams reviewed footage from every nearby camera. Private investigators worked alongside international authorities. Airports were monitored. Ports were monitored. Road checkpoints were established. Every resource available was activated. No expense was spared. No lead was ignored. The search for Hope became the only thing that mattered. Hours later, investigators discovered a crucial clue. A delivery van had been spotted near the property shortly before Hope disappeared. Its license plates were fake, but security footage captured enough details to identify the vehicle. The trail led toward an industrial district outside Seoul. Min Jae immediately prepared a team. Authorities wanted to wait. He refused. Every minute mattered. Every second counted. Hope was only 4 years old. She was frightened, confused, alone, and somewhere she was waiting for someone to come find her. Meanwhile, Hope sat inside a small room. The kidnappers had not harmed her. In fact, they seemed strangely nervous around her. One guard offered juice, another brought snacks, a third attempted to entertain her with cartoons. Hope simply sat quietly holding her favorite stuffed rabbit, the toy Min Jae had given her months earlier. "Are you scared?" one kidnapper asked gently. Hope shook her head. The man looked surprised. "Why not?" The little girl smiled. "Because Uncle Min always finds me." The kidnapper looked away. Something about her answer made him uncomfortable. Back at the command center, new information arrived. One of Woo Sung's former associates had agreed to cooperate. In exchange for protection, he revealed a hidden warehouse location, a place known only to a handful of trusted people. Investigators compared the information with vehicle movements. Everything matched. For the first time, they had a real target. Night had fallen by the time the convoy arrived. The warehouse sat alone near abandoned shipping yards. Dark, silent, suspiciously quiet. Authorities prepared carefully. But Min Jae couldn't wait. The moment the operation began, he moved. Bodyguards followed. Police teams entered from multiple directions. The doors were breached. Officers flooded inside. Chaos erupted. Several armed men surrendered immediately. Others attempted to flee. Within minutes, the building was secured. Then someone shouted, "We found a child." Naomi's heart nearly stopped. She ran, ignoring everyone, ignoring danger, ignoring instructions. She followed the voice. And there, sitting on a small bed clutching her stuffed rabbit, was Hope, perfectly safe, perfectly alive. "Mommy!" Hope leaped into her arms. Naomi collapsed to her knees, holding her daughter tightly. Neither wanted to let go. Both cried. Around them, hardened officers quietly looked away. Even experienced investigators struggled to hide emotion, because moments like this reminded everyone why they fought so hard, why they refused to give up, why every life mattered. But one problem remained. Han Woo-sung wasn't there. He had escaped. Agon. Toff Warehouse had been a temporary location, a stepping stone, a distraction. The mastermind remained free. And now he was more dangerous than ever. 3 days later, the world learned about Hope's rescue. News stations across multiple countries covered the story. Mans of support flooded in. Millions celebrated. Donations poured into Hope Haven. People who had never met Naomi or Hope prayed for them. The story touched hearts everywhere. Yet while the public celebrated, Min Jae remained focused. Because he knew the truth. Woo Sung was still out there. And until that changed, nobody was truly safe. Then something unexpected happened. A package arrived at Min Jae's office. No return address, no fingerprints, no clues. Inside was a single photograph. Min Jae stared at it. His face went pale. Naomi immediately noticed. "What is it?" He handed her the picture. The image showed a woman, young, beautiful, holding a newborn baby. Naomi frowned. "Who is she?" For several seconds, Min Jae couldn't speak. Then he whispered the answer. "My sister." Naomi blinked. "You have a sister?" "I had a sister." The distinction sent chills down her spine. Min Jae explained that his younger sister had disappeared nearly 20 years earlier. Everyone believed she had died. No body was ever found. No answers were ever discovered. It remained the greatest tragedy of his life, the wound that never healed. And now someone had sent her photograph, recently taken, not 20 years old, recent. Very recent, meaning only one thing. She might still be alive. A second item rested inside the package, a handwritten note. Only 7 words. Min Jae read them twice, then 3 times. His hands trembled. Naomi had never seen him like this. Finally, he handed her the note. She read the message aloud. "Want your sister back? Come alone." No signature, no location, nothing else. But both already knew who had sent it, Han Woo-sung. And if the photograph was real, then this wasn't just another trap. It was something far bigger. Because after 20 years of believing she was gone forever, Min Jae had just been given a reason to hope. And hope can make people do dangerous things. For the first time since Naomi had met him, Kang Min Jae looked shaken, not angry, not determined, shaken. The photograph sat on the table between them. A picture that shouldn't exist. A picture that had reopened a wound 20 years old. Naomi picked it up again. The resemblance was undeniable. The woman had Min Jae's eyes, his smile. Even the small scar near her eyebrow matched one visible in childhood photographs he had shown Naomi months earlier. If the image was fake, it was an incredibly convincing one. And if it was real, everything Min Jae believed about his past was wrong. That night, nobody slept. Investigators examined the photograph. Experts analyzed every detail. Buildings in the background, Russians in windows, clothing labels, street signs, anything that might reveal where it had been taken. Hours later, they found something. A tiny shop sign reflected in a nearby car mirror. Most people would never have noticed it. But investigators enhanced the image. The sign belonged to a small fishing village on South Korea's southeastern coast. It wasn't much, but it was a lead. The first lead regarding Min Jae's sister in 2 decades. Meanwhile, Woo-sung watched from a hidden location. His plan was working perfectly. He knew Min Jae, knew him better than anyone. Power couldn't control him. Money couldn't tempt him. Fear couldn't stop him. But family? Family was different. Woo-sung smiled as he watched surveillance footage. Soon Min Jae would walk directly into the trap, exactly as planned. The next morning, another message arrived. This time it contained coordinates, an abandoned lighthouse overlooking the ocean, and a single instruction: come alone. Naomi immediately objected. No. Min Jae looked at her calmly. I have to go. No, you don't. Naomi? It could be fake. What if it isn't? The question hung in the air because neither could answer it. What if his sister truly was alive? What if this was his only chance? How could anyone walk away from that? Several hours later, Min Jae stood near the lighthouse, alone, just as instructed. Storm clouds gathered overhead. Waves crashed violently against the cliffs. The isolated structure looked like something from a nightmare. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then a voice echoed behind him. You actually came. Woo-sung stepped from the shadows. Older, more tired, more desperate, but still dangerous. Min Jae's eyes narrowed. Where is she? Woo-sung laughed. No hello? Where is my sister? The smile slowly disappeared. For several moments, neither man spoke. 2 former brothers, 2 former friends, standing face to face after years of hatred. Finally, Woo-sung sighed. Still the same. And you're still a coward, the insult landed. Woo-sung's expression darkened. You think you're the hero. No, you always did. I asked where my sister is. The wind howled around them. Then Woo-sung surprised him. He handed over a folder. No tricks, no games. Just a folder. Inside were documents, photographs, medical records, travel records, evidence. Lots of evidence. And every page pointed toward one shocking conclusion. Min Jae's sister was alive. The discovery stunned everyone. According to the documents, she had survived the attack years ago, but she suffered severe injuries and memory loss. She had been secretly moved overseas under a different identity. Over time, she built a completely new life, a husband, children, a career, everything, without ever knowing who she truly was, without knowing she had a brother searching for her, without knowing anyone was still waiting. Min Jae read the files repeatedly. Tears filled his eyes. For 20 years, he had carried guilt. For 20 years, he believed he failed her. Now, everything had changed. But something felt wrong, very wrong. When investigators reviewed the documents, inconsistencies appeared. Dates didn't match. Locations conflicted. Records seemed altered, small mistakes. The kind people make when creating lies. Naomi noticed it first. Then the investigators confirmed it. The story wasn't entirely true. Parts were real. Parts were fabricated. Wu Sung had mixed truth with deception. The question was why. Then they discovered the answer. Inside one document was a bank transfer, a recent one, made only weeks earlier. The transfer originated from a private medical facility, and the recipient's name made everyone freeze. Kang Soo Min, Min Jae's sister, a real person, a living person. Not just a story, not just a memory, real. The bank transfer proved it. Wu Sung had lied about many things, but not about her being alive. Days later, investigators traced the account. The trail led to Canada, a quiet coastal city, far from Seoul, far from danger, far from everything. And, according to the records, Soo Min was living there under another name, completely unaware that an entire search operation was underway. Completely unaware, her brother had spent 20 years mourning her. When Naomi shared the news, Min Jae sat silently for a long time. Then he looked at a framed photograph of his mother, the woman who never stopped searching for her daughter, the woman who died believing she had lost one child forever. A tear rolled down his cheek. This is what she wanted. Naomi squeezed his hand. Then let's bring your family home. But thousands of miles away, in Canada, a woman named Sarah Kim was locking her bookstore for the evening. She believed she was an ordinary mother of two, an ordinary wife, an ordinary citizen. She had no idea her real name was Kang Soo Min, and she had absolutely no idea that within days, her entire world was about to change forever, because her past had finally found her. And it was coming fast. The flight to Canada felt longer than any journey Min Jae had ever taken. Not because of the distance, but because every passing hour brought him closer to an answer he had waited 20 years to receive. Naomi sat beside him. Hope slept peacefully across their seats. Neither adult spoke much. There were too many emotions, too many possibilities. What if the information was wrong? What if his sister refused to see him? What if she truly had no memory of her past? The questions refused to leave his mind. Thousands of miles away, Sarah Kim finished arranging books inside her small bookstore. The shop sat near the harbor of a quiet coastal town. Customers loved her. Neighbors trusted her. Children often stopped by after school to read comics. She had built a beautiful life, a simple life, exactly the kind of life Min Jae had always hoped she might have if she somehow survived. The only mystery Sarah carried was a scar near her temple and a complete lack of memories. Before age 18, doctors had always blamed childhood trauma. Over the years, she stopped asking questions. Some wounds seemed easier to leave alone. The next morning, Min Jae stood across the street from the bookstore. His heart pounded. For a man who had negotiated billion-dollar deals and faced dangerous enemies, he felt terrified. Naomi gently touched his arm. "You don't have to rush." He nodded, but his feet refused to move. Then the bookstore door opened. A woman stepped outside. The world seemed to stop. Min Jae couldn't breathe. It was her, older, different, but unmistakably her. His little sister, alive. Sarah noticed the strangers immediately. A tall Korean man, a black woman, a little girl holding a stuffed rabbit. They seemed emotional for some reason. She smiled politely. "Can I help you?" Min Jae opened his mouth. No words came out. 20 years of grief, 20 years of hope, 20 years of searching, all collided at once. Finally, he whispered, "Soo Min." The smile vanished from Sarah's face. A strange expression appeared. Confusion, recognition, fear. For just a second, a single second, something flashed inside her eyes, a memory, then it disappeared. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I think you have the wrong person." The words hit harder than any enemy ever had. But Min Jae didn't give up. He showed her old photographs, pictures from childhood, pictures with their mother, pictures taken before the tragedy. Sarah stared at them. At first, she remained calm. Then her hands started shaking. One image caught her attention. A little girl standing beside a river, holding a red umbrella. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through her head. The photograph slipped from her fingers. Fragments appeared. A woman's voice, rain, a brother laughing, a lullaby. The images vanished as quickly as they came. Sarah stepped backward. "What is happening?" Naomi moved carefully. "No one wants to hurt you." Sarah looked terrified. Her entire identity felt unstable. Everything she believed about herself was being challenged. Later that evening, Sarah agreed to meet privately. Her husband Daniel joined them. At first, he seemed skeptical, protective, concerned, but after reviewing the evidence, even he struggled to deny it. Birth records, hospital documents, DNA samples collected from old family records. The evidence was overwhelming. Then came the final confirmation, a voluntary DNA test. The results arrived 48 hours later. 0.99% probability. Sarah Kim was Kang Soo-min, Min Jae's sister. The room fell silent. Nobody knew what to say. After 20 years, the impossible had become reality. Soo-min cried first, then Min Jae, then Naomi. Even Daniel wiped away tears. The reunion wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. There were no magical memories suddenly returning. No instant restoration of the lost years. Instead, there was something more real. Two siblings meeting again, two lives reconnecting after decades apart, two people choosing to build a relationship from whatever pieces remained. For several weeks, everything felt peaceful. The happiest period any of them could remember. Soo-min met Hope. Hope immediately adored her. Naomi and Daniel became friends. Family dinners replaced investigations. Laughter replaced fear. For the first time in years, Min Jae allowed himself to imagine a future free from conflict, a future centered around family, a future his mother would have loved. Unfortunately, someone else was watching, someone who hated seeing him happy. Han Woo-sung had escaped once again, despite international warrants, despite investigations, despite every effort to capture him. He remained free. And when he learned that Min Jae had reunited with his sister, his anger became obsession. Everything had gone wrong. Every plan had failed. Every attack had backfired. Naomi had grown stronger. Hope Haven had expanded. Hope had been rescued. And now Min Jae had regained the family he lost. Woo-sung couldn't accept it. One stormy night, he stood alone inside an abandoned warehouse. Rain hammered the roof. News reports played on a nearby television. Images of Min Jae and Soo-min appeared on screen. Families reunited, smiles, hope healing. The sight filled him with rage. Then he made a decision, the final decision, the one from which there would be no return. He picked up a phone, called several remaining loyal followers, and issued a single order. "We end this now." Meanwhile, back in Canada, Hope was helping Soo-min organize books inside the store. The little girl giggled as she stacked colorful picture books. Neither noticed the black SUV parked across the street. Neither noticed the man watching from inside. Neither noticed the camera lens slowly focusing on the bookstore window. But someone else did. A retired police officer named Robert Hayes, who owned the coffee shop next door. Something about the vehicle felt wrong. Very wrong. And as he continued watching, he saw the passenger lift a phone and begin taking photographs. Photographs of Hope, photographs of Soo-min, photographs of the store. Robert immediately reached for his phone because after 30 years in law enforcement, he knew exactly what danger looked like. And he had a feeling the nightmare everyone thought was over was about to begin again. Robert Hayes trusted his instincts. 30 years as a police officer had taught him one important lesson. When something feels wrong, pay attention. The black SUV had been parked across from the bookstore for nearly 2 hours. The engine remained running. The windows were tinted. And the occupants seemed far more interested in watching people than buying books. Robert quietly photographed the license plate. Then he called a friend still working in law enforcement. Within minutes, the response came back. The plate was fake. His stomach dropped. Fake plates almost never meant anything good. Inside the bookstore, Hope was helping Su-min arrange books for a children's reading event. The little girl laughed as she balanced a stack nearly as tall as herself. "You have too many books." Su-min smiled. "A bookstore can never have too many books." Hope considered this seriously. "That's true." The answer made both women laugh. Neither realized danger was moving closer. Later that afternoon, Robert crossed the street. He entered the bookstore pretending to browse. When he spotted Su-min, he lowered his voice. "I don't want to alarm you." That sentence immediately got her attention. "But I think someone may be watching this place." Her smile disappeared. "What do you mean?" Robert explained everything. The SUV, the photographs, the fake license plate. By the time he finished speaking, Su-min felt a knot forming in her stomach. She immediately contacted Min Jae. 2 hours later, security teams arrived. The SUV was gone, but surveillance footage remained. Investigators reviewed every camera in the area. The result was disturbing. The same vehicle had appeared repeatedly over the previous week. Different location, different times, always near family members, always watching. Someone had been conducting surveillance, carefully, patiently, professionally, and there was little doubt about who was behind it. Han Woo-sung. That night, Min Jae gathered everyone inside a secure property. Naomi, Hope, Su-min, Daniel security advisors. For the first time since the reunion, the atmosphere felt tense. "We need to be careful," Min Jae said. Naomi nodded. "He won't stop." No. The room fell silent. Everyone knew it. Woo-sung had become obsessed. An obsession often ends in disaster. 3 days later, disaster arrived. It began with a phone call. One of Min Jae's investigators sounded panicked. "We found Woo-sung." Everyone jumped to attention. "Where?" Min Jae demanded. "Vancouver." The location surprised everyone. Woo-sung had somehow entered Canada. And according to intelligence reports, he wasn't hiding. He was preparing for what exactly? Nobody knew. But it couldn't be good. The next morning brought worse news. Authorities raided a warehouse connected to Woo-sung. Inside, they discovered weapons, vests, passports, large amounts of cash, maps, surveillance photographs, and one horrifying detail: several plans targeting members of Min Jae's family, including Hope, including Su-min. The threat was no longer theoretical. It was immediate, real, dangerously real. Security around the family doubled overnight. Hope hated it. "Why can't I go outside?" Naomi knelt beside her. "Just for a little while." "Did I do something wrong?" The question broke Naomi's heart. "No, baby." "Then why?" Naomi struggled for an answer. How do you explain danger to a child? How do you explain hatred? How do you explain that some people become so consumed by anger they stop caring who gets hurt? In the end, she simply hugged her daughter and prayed the nightmare would end soon. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. One of Woo-sung's closest remaining associates surrendered. He was tired, scared, and unwilling to spend the rest of his life running. In exchange for protection, he revealed everything: safe houses, financial accounts, contacts, future plans. Then he revealed something else. Something nobody expected. Woo-sung wasn't planning to escape. He wasn't planning to hide. He wasn't planning for the future at all. He intended to confront Min Jae personally, one final time. The location was an abandoned shipyard outside Vancouver, a place filled with rusting cargo containers and forgotten warehouses, a place isolated enough for anything to happen. Authorities immediately prepared an operation. This time, there would be no mistakes, no escape routes, no second chances. The night of the operation arrived beneath heavy rain. Police units surrounded the area. Security teams moved into position. Every exit was covered, every approach monitored. Min Jae stood beside the command center, watching the storm. Naomi grabbed his hand. "Be careful." He nodded, then stepped into the darkness. Inside the shipyard, Woo-sung waited. Alone, no army, no bodyguards, no followers. Just a tired man standing among the ruins of his own choices. When Min Jae entered the warehouse, their eyes met. For a moment, neither spoke. Rain hammered the metal roof above them. Finally, Woo Sung laughed softly. "Look at us." Min Jae remained silent. "We started with nothing." "We did. And now?" Woo Sung gestured around the empty warehouse. "This is how it ends." There was no arrogance left in his voice, no confidence, only exhaustion, the exhaustion of a man who had spent years destroying himself. Then something unexpected happened. Woo Sung lowered his weapon. He simply let it fall. The metal clattered against the floor. Everyone froze, including Min Jae. "I lost," Woo Sung said quietly. The words echoed through the warehouse. "I spent years trying to take everything from you." He laughed bitterly. "But the truth is, I lost everything long before that." For the first time, genuine regret appeared in his eyes. Not regret for being caught. Regret for the life he had wasted. Police officers entered moments later. Weapons raised. The confrontation was over. Woo Sung offered no resistance, none. As handcuffs closed around his wrists, he looked at Min Jae one final time. Then he asked a question. A simple question. A heartbreaking question. "Do you think I could have been different?" Min Jae stared at the man who had once been his closest friend, the man who had become his greatest enemy. And after a long silence, he answered, "Yes." Woo Sung closed his eyes. For the first time in years, tears appeared. And for the first time in years, he stopped running. Outside, the rain finally began to ease. But as authorities escorted Woo Sung toward a vehicle, a sudden shout echoed across the shipyard. One officer pointed toward the water. A speedboat was racing away from the docks, fast, very fast. And according to security reports, someone important had just escaped from the warehouse minutes before the raid. Someone nobody even knew was there. Someone connected to Woo Sung. Someone carrying information that could change everything they thought they knew. Because hidden among the documents recovered that night was evidence suggesting Woo Sung had not been acting alone, not for years. And whoever had just escaped might be the real mastermind behind everything. The speedboat disappeared into the darkness before anyone could stop it. For several minutes, confusion spread across the shipyard. Who had escaped? Why had Woo Sung never mentioned them? And how much damage could they still cause? Investigators immediately searched the warehouse. What they found stunned everyone. High inside a locked office were years of records. Accurate communications, financial transactions, encrypted messages. The evidence revealed a shocking truth. Woo Sung had not been the mastermind. He had been a weapon. Someone else had spent years feeding his anger, funding his operations, and encouraging his obsession with Min Jae. A shadow figure known only by one name, the director. No photographs existed, no confirmed identity, only rumors. Yet every trail pointed to the same conclusion. The director had manipulated events from behind the scenes for years. When authorities questioned Woo Sung, he finally told the truth. "I never realized it at first." He sat quietly in an interrogation room, tired, defeated, broken. "He convinced me everything was Min Jae's fault." Woo Sung looked down at his hands. "And I wanted someone to blame." The realization came too late, years too late. But it was genuine. For the first time, he accepted responsibility for his choices. Not Min Jae, not fate, not the world, himself. The search for the director continued for months. International agencies joined the investigation. Financial networks were dismantled. Criminal operations collapsed. One by one, pieces of the organization disappeared. Eventually, authorities located the mysterious leader in a remote country where he had been hiding under a false identity. The arrest made international headlines. After years of operating from the shadows, his empire finally ended. And with that, the nightmare that had haunted Min Jae's family finally came to a close. A year later, life looked very different. Hope Haven had expanded across North America. New shelters opened in major cities. Thousands of mothers received help every year. What started as one frightened woman seeking safety had become a movement changing lives. Naomi often visited the shelters personally. She never forgot where she came from. She never forgot the stormy night that changed everything. And she made sure every woman who entered Hope Haven knew one thing. She was not alone. Min slowly rebuilt her relationship with Min Jae. The lost years could never be recovered. But new memories were created: family dinners, holiday celebrations, birthdays. Simple moments that meant everything. Her children adored their uncle, and Min Jae treasured every second he spent with them. The family that had once seemed lost forever was finally whole again. As for Woo Sung, he accepted a lengthy prison sentence. Many expected bitterness. Instead, something unexpected happened. He began cooperating with investigators, helping victims recover stolen assets, providing information that dismantled criminal networks. Nothing could erase the pain he caused. Nothing could undo the damage. But for the first time, he chose to do something right. One day, he sent a letter to Min Jae. It contained only a single sentence: "I am sorry for becoming the man I became." Min Jae never replied. But he kept the letter, not because he forgave everything, but because it reminded him how easily anger can destroy a life. 3 years later, on a bright spring morning in Chicago, hundreds of people gathered for a special celebration. The newest Hope Haven campus was opening. Families filled the grounds. Children laughed. Volunteers greeted guests. Rewarders covered the event. Near the entrance stood a bronze plaque. It contained a simple inscription: "One act of kindness can change countless lives." Naomi smiled when she read it, because she knew it was true, more than anyone. As the ceremony ended, a little girl ran across the grass. Hope, now older, confident, happy. She wrapped her arms around Min Jae's legs. "Uncle Min," he laughed and lifted her into the air. The crowd smiled. Many knew their story. Many didn't. But everyone could see the love between them, a love built not by blood, but by choice. Later that evening, after the guests had gone home, Naomi and Min Jae stood alone outside the shelter. The sun was setting. Golden light stretched across the city. For a while, neither spoke. Then Min Jae reached into his pocket. Naomi immediately noticed his nervous expression. The same fearless man who could face criminals and billionaires without blinking suddenly looked terrified, which made her smile. Slowly, he knelt. Naomi's eyes widened. Hope gasped dramatically. Min started crying before anything was even said. The entire family watched. Min Jae looked up at Naomi. Years ago, a stranger had accidentally texted him while sitting alone in the rain. Neither could have imagined where that moment would lead. Now he knew. It had led here, to family, to healing, to love, to hope. "Naomi Carter," he said softly, "you changed my life the day you sent the wrong message." Tears filled her eyes. "And you saved mine," he smiled. "Will you marry me?" Hope practically bounced with excitement. Naomi laughed through tears, then nodded. "Yes." The answer was barely out before Hope screamed loud enough for half of Chicago to hear. The family burst into laughter. And beneath the fading sunset, surrounded by the people who mattered most, Naomi realized something extraordinary. The worst night of her life had led to the greatest blessing she never expected. A door had once been slammed in her face. She had been abandoned, rejected, alone. Yet one accidental text message had opened another door. A door leading to friendship, to family, to purpose. And ultimately, to a future brighter than anything she had ever imagined. As the stars appeared overhead, Hope slipped her small hand into Naomi's and Min Jae's. The three of them stood together, watching the city lights shine. No fear, no enemies, no storms, just peace. And for the first time in a very long time, peace was enough. Like, subscribe, and support my channel. I really need your support. If you enjoy my video, please share it and leave your feedback in the comments.